Good evening, OCPS parents. My name is Victoria Tierney. I'm the Senior Administrator for Parent and Family Engagement, and it's truly my pleasure to welcome you this evening for, I think it's going to be an incredibly informative session. We want to welcome, she's a good friend of ours, and we're glad that she's always coming back and ready to help us out. So please extend a warm welcome to Ms. Rachel Schwitters, who's the Director of the Office of Students with Disabilities at Valencia College. And Rachel, it's so good to have you again this evening. Thank you for always being so generous with your time and so generous with sharing your expertise.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. I'm always glad to be here and share kind of the information that we have to help parents and students make the transition from high school into post-secondary options, whether that be Valencia, another state institution, or a college or university. And so I will just get started. Like Victoria said, my name is Rachel Schwitters, and I'm the director for the Office for Students with Disabilities at Valencia College. We have now 9 campuses at Valencia, and they're all in various parts of Central Florida, east, west, south. And so we are well spread out and a well-serving institution across our Central Florida area. So, who are we? We exist at the college level to ensure that all students with disabilities have equal opportunity and access to the college experience. We also assist students with self-advocacy, and we make sure that Valencia as an institution complies, with all the laws related to disability and disability support. So we're going to talk about some of the differences in disability services between high school and college, or really the K-12 world and the college or post-secondary world. We're going to look at 4 different areas: disability documentation, accommodations, the academic environment, and the student's responsibilities. So in regards to documentation, when students are in high school or any time in their K-12 career, they're typically identified as having a disability or some sort of learning struggle, excuse me, by the school themselves, right? So their teachers are noticing something, they're struggling with some academic areas or some behavior areas, and we start to develop a plan. And eventually, if they need special education services, they develop an IEP. That IEP is a contract between the parents and the students and the school. It provides the student with goals and things that we want them to achieve, right? And it also lists certain accommodations that the teachers or staff feel that the student's going to need to be successful. When they come to college, it's very different, right? Students at the college level have to self-disclose. And what that means is the student has to come to our office, provide us with disability documentation, and say, I need accommodations. Not all colleges across the entire United States require documentation, but currently the practice at Valencia, and it is protected under ADA, we are allowed to require disability documentation. A question that often gets asked is, does my IEP or my child's IEP automatically fly through the air and land on my desk? No. So there is no connection from the K-12 system to the college system that happens automatically in regards to IEPs or special education services. The student is absolutely welcome to provide us with their IEP or 504 plan from high school, so we can get a history of disability, a history of accommodations that have been helpful, etc. Also different is that the student is responsible for any costs that may be necessary for the documentation. So at some point, it's possible that your child, your student, was seen by the school psychologist and they did some academic or IQ testing with the student. This is not the case at the college level. If the student wants updated or additional documentation, they are required to provide that to us at their own expense. This is where I do strongly encourage parents as they are transitioning out of high school to get in contact with vocational rehabilitation or VR services, because they can help in the financial support for an updated evaluation for your child or student after they leave the K-12 public school system. All right, in regards to accommodations, so like we kind of said before, the accommodations are usually determined by the faculty, by the teachers, right? Your ESC teacher, your regular education teacher determines what accommodations they think the student needs to be the most successful in the course. The parent is also involved in that in the IEP meeting, and all the faculty are made aware of the accommodations. You can tell I've been at the college level now, and I'm not in my K-12 world anymore when I keep saying faculty. But it looks a little different at the college level. Students do provide their faculty members with letters of accommodation every semester. Students must request these letters from the Disability Services Office, right? They have to come and say, I want my accommodations for this semester. Students need to be able, when they come and meet with us after they've provided the documentation, to be able to share with us what accommodations have been helpful to them. So this past month, really, my team has met with many of the high school students in the transitions around the Central Florida area. And we asked all of the students when we met with them, what are your accommodations? And some of them were like, I'm not sure. I don't know. And their teachers were there and the teachers are like, yes, you do. So make sure when they make that transition that they are aware of the supports and the accommodations and the things that they need to be successful. They may not need everything on that list from high school on their IEP, but there may be some things that are very beneficial and that have helped them have the best access and opportunities. A little different from high school to college. At the college level, the letter of accommodation simply lists the accommodations. That is the only information we provide to faculty or any other person at or department at the college. All disability information is entirely confidential. It is not shared with anyone, even the highest administrators, unless it is absolutely necessary. So professors do not know the diagnosis of your student. They do not know that your student has a learning disability or your student has autism. There's nothing that tells them that. They're simply provided a list that says they need extra time for tests, they need a note taker, and they need to be able to use the testing center. That's it. So I always encourage parents and students, if there's certain things you want your faculty or your professors to know about you, to please share that with them. They're happy to engage in that process with you. All right, so here are some of the accommodations that could be provided to your student, of course, depending on the documentation provided. And then we also always engage in an interactive process, a conversation with the student, in addition to whatever documentation is provided. We do provide our students with priority registration, which allows them to register before other students, allowing them a greater availability of courses times that might work better, days that might work better for them, etc. They can get additional time for testing, alternative testing arrangements, which means they might test in a different location. They might have a distraction reduced area to take their tests. We have a lot of audio recorders. We have note-taking software for our students. We, of course, have access to sign language interpreters and captioning services. We have a wide variety of assistive technology to provide to our students who need that. And then we can provide materials in alternative formats as well. That kind of note there at the bottom is just to explain that we do not provide personal attendance. We do not provide one-on-one aids or classroom aids or anything like that, as well as any kind of individually prescribed devices such as glasses or hearing aids or mobility aids or anything like that. Anything of a personal nature must be provided by the student. Okay. So a little bit about the academic environment, and this is great information to share with your student, with your child, because they don't always get this in a direct manner. Oftentimes they are provided with, in the high school, step-by-step directions. You know, this is how you accomplish this information. Grades can have a variety of factors, right? A participation grade, an attendance grade. Did you make an attempt can go into your grades. Lots of things can impact how your student is graded on their performance and their work in the classroom. Teachers are likely to more readily prepare students for an exam. I'm sorry, are we good with the audio, Victoria?
I am working on giving some tips, and yes, we will be posting this as a recording on our YouTube Families channel, and I'm dropping that link in the chat now.
Perfect. Okay, just wanted to make sure before I went too far gone. Okay, and teachers are preparing their students for their exams. They might provide study guides or chapters that they need to make sure the student reads and highlights different pieces of information. Oftentimes there's a lot of fact memorizing, which can at least get students to a passing score sometimes. And tasks are more structured. You need to complete this, you need to complete that, etc. In college, it becomes a lot more open. The pace of instruction is set by the faculty member. It is not set by the students. The faculty member has material they want to cover, and they're going to cover that material, and your student is going to either get it or they're going to have to find some other way to learn the material. Professors do not provide the best ways for students to learn. If you have a student who's a visual learner and the faculty member may stand at the front of the class and just talk the entire time. No slides, no presentations, no nothing. And quite the opposite. You may have a student who needs auditory and the professor says, read chapters 1 through 3, answer the questions at the end of the text, and learn the material. And that may be all the instruction that's given to the student. Communication skills are vital. Students have to be able to communicate with faculty. They have to be able to engage in appropriate email conversation and skills. And they have to be able to present themselves in a professional manner in the college environment. As far as respect and rapport and attention and things like that. Keep in mind, college is not required like K through 12. By law, you have to be there. When you come to college, it is not required for everyone, and it is a privilege to attend. And then students need to self-monitor their own progress, right? So they're not necessarily going to get feedback and grades on every single thing that they turn in or do, or, you know, whether they're being successful in the course or not. They need to engage in some of that information themselves. Professors may provide grade books in Canvas, but they also may not. All right, and the students' responsibilities. So in high school, students can get assisted with a lot of their decisions, whether that be from their parents or their teachers. Um, when they make decisions about things that are happening in either their own lives or in their school life, they can get assistance with that. Sometimes there's limits that are set by parents and teachers, right? There's certain structure and things in place. Their progress is well monitored. They meet with guidance counselors and teachers and ESE teachers, and they're telling them, you know, you got to do this to get to graduation. You got to do this to get to this point. You got to do this to get, you know, make sure you have everything met for Bright. I know it's not Bright Futures anymore, but for a scholarship. And their time at home and school is more structured, right? So they go to school 6 to 7 hours a day, and that is very planned out for them, right? They have a bell schedule. They know when they move from this class to this class, and they know when they have to be in class. Their structure of classes doesn't usually change during the year. They have an entire calendar year to meet the objectives of that course. Colleges are based on semesters. Semesters are only half of a year, usually 15 weeks. So they're completing an entire course in 15 weeks. And they don't have to come to school every day. Their classes are usually 2 days a week for an hour and 15 minutes, twice a week, which gets to a 3-hour credit course. Also a little different, school personnel talk freely with parents about students' progress and students' planning. Parents are very heavily involved in the K through 12 system. And in that system, we rely on our parents for support, for information, communication with students, etc. At college, and it just so happens that it's the transition of life, and we were talking about this, and adulting comes into play. Students are expected to make their own decisions. They get to decide what classes they want to take. They get to decide what days of the week are better for them to come to class. They may want to take all their classes online if they're offered, and they're able to do that. They have the right. So no one at the college level can conduct business on behalf of the student, regardless of guardianship, power of attorney, student release of records, etc. All that does not apply when you're doing business on the student's behalf. And that's things like getting grades, knowing whether the student was in attendance or not, choosing classes for the student, filling out any kind of important documents. The student is the one who's going to be doing that. Again, students are required for more self-monitoring. There's a lot less in-class time. That's only 3. They're right now, if they're in one class every day for an hour, they're getting 5 hours of instruction in one area. At the college level, they're going to get about 3 hours of instruction in one area. This means that they will have to do much more independent work, independent study, independent learning. Students are responsible for their own self-advocacy. If they need help, they have to seek out the resources. The resources do not come to them. If your child is failing every class that they have, they might get some outreach from maybe their faculty member, maybe an advisor, but we have no way of just following student grades. And so if they're in trouble, if they need assistance, they have to seek that out. No one is going to come to them and say, hey, is everything okay? Are you doing well in your classes? What's going on? Why aren't you attending class? It's very different. Critical time management and organizational skills. There are a ton of processes and procedures at the college level. Applying for financial aid, applying to the college, deadlines for payment, deadlines to buy books. There's deadlines to register for your courses. And then if you don't register on time, we charge you a late fee. So that aspect of college can be very challenging for our incoming students. And so we encourage you to support them in that area as much as possible. Explain how to get a planner, how to write down what you need to work on in certain areas. The students are using tons of apps, tons of stuff on their phones or their tablets. And so there's lots of different ones available for time management, organizational skills. There's reminder apps and things like that that can be very beneficial for students. Services are usually requested well in advance. Nothing is really done at the last minute. We like to say that your lack of planning does not constitute an emergency on our part, right? So you have to plan ahead. You have to think about when things are going to be coming due, and also the dates and deadlines of the college. Again, we cannot discuss anything related to the student without the student's written permission. And in addition to that, we never let anyone else conduct business on behalf of the student. That is protected. They are protected under FERPA, which you would ask me what that stands for, but it's the Family Education Protection Rights Act, I think, or something very close to that. All right. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to stop by any of our locations. So our three main locations, the one on the east side of Orlando, that's over off of Econ-Lock-Hatchie, very close to UCF, fairly close to UCF. That's our east region. And then we also have our west campus, which is over off of Kirkman, not too far from Universal. That's our kind of original and largest campus. And then we also have a main campus out at Osceola, which is in the South region. And I know you guys are all from Orange County, but there may be reason, or you may just be geographically located closer to Osceola campus. And that's our other main campus. So those are our three main campuses. In regards to disability services, they are housed, they're staffed, in normal business hours, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. We also have, like I said, lots of regional campuses. That includes Lake Nona, Winter Park campus. We have a campus in Point Siena, and we have a campus in downtown Orlando, actually now. That's our newest campus. And so those are staffed on an as-needed, appointment-based, usually, for disability services, not for lots of other things. But if you need us at those locations, you would just notify us at one of the main campuses, and we can have someone come out to the regional campuses and help support you there. And I just want to say good luck to all of our future college graduates of Valencia College. And am I able to take questions? Any questions?
Absolutely. We are able to take any questions in the chat. So we have quite a few participants, and they have been wonderful about listening to everything and the information. We were talking earlier, Rachel, and it was just so interesting to me that I'm so used to dealing with the educational system, the K-12 educational system. I'm thinking in terms of protection under IDEA, and it was really enlightening when you were sharing with me that that shifts once a child is out of the K-12 school system, regardless of what age they graduate. Once they graduate, now we're moving into ADA compliance. And I think that's definitely a shift that is new to a lot of our parents and to our students.
Absolutely. And we talk a lot about that at the college level. IDEA really works to guarantee student success, right? And so in the K-12 realm, the teachers, the staff, the administrators, everyone is working at their best to make sure that that student can be successful and can get to high school graduation. And there's tons of different ways that they can accomplish that, right? Even if students need to be in an alternative setting or something like that, there's endless options that we can explore. When you shift to the college setting, we do focus our students are protected under ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of, I think it's 1973, which guarantees them reasonable accommodations to provide access. And yes, that word reasonable is very vague on purpose, because that's how the lawyers like it. And so that's why we engage in that interactive process where we do require documentation from a licensed professional, and then we work directly with the student to determine what their needs are and what we can provide that is reasonable and appropriate at the college setting, at the college level. And that may look different than what is currently listed on your child's IEP. Those accommodations do not necessarily transfer like to like. Like I mentioned, we do not have any one-on-one aides. We do not have anyone in the classroom to provide additional support. Actually, by insurance purposes, only people on the roster for that class are permitted in that classroom at that time. So even if we have dual enrollment students, parents are not permitted in the classroom. They may be on campus, but they are not permitted in the classroom. Oh, I lost your audio.
My fault. So as we were talking about the ADA compliance, one of the parents was asking, does every building at Valencia have full access for wheelchair users with working elevators every day?
In my perfect world, yes. There is, so by ADA law, you actually only need 70% access to a building, which means there has to basically be at least one door that has an actuator or an automatic door opener.
Okay.
I would say it's pretty close to 95% of the time our elevators are in working order. But that does happen everywhere, you know, elevators break for lots of different reasons. But we do have plans in place to support our students if there is an issue. We do have evac chairs in any building that has only one elevator. And that's a chair where we would have to transition a student into a special chair that can be moved down the stairs. Of course, we would likely only do that in emergent situations. And our security team is trained on how to do that. And some of our disability service members team is as well. We do have college security at Valencia College. We do not have licensed police officers.
Okay.
So almost all, I think, of the universities in Florida now have their own, I'm losing the word, not official, but
We call them school resource officers, SROs. So a lot of the schools have someone who is a designated or certified emergency response provider or worker.
exactly, but not a sworn law enforcement officer.
Correct. That is true that in terms of the colleges, I don't believe they have to be. That's another shift because here in OCPS, when you're talking about schools, we do need someone who is actually a sworn officer on campus.
Yep. So our security team is not. We do have many, many of them are retired law enforcement officers. And we do, of course, have very close relationships with the Orange County Sheriff's Office, OPD, and down south with KPD, which is the Kissimmee Police Department. So we work very closely with all of them as well. So great question.
Yes, thank you, Val, so much. If anyone has a question, please feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat. Rachel is with us for some time, so we have the opportunity to answer any questions that might come up. When I was thinking about it, I realized that one of the biggest shifts, Rachel, and I think that this is probably challenging for parents who are used to really kind of being their child's advocate. And when I'm listening to you, I think one of the largest shifts is recognizing that the, your child needs to become their own advocate. They really do have to find a voice. What are some tips or just some ideas that you can share with parents about how to build that if your child is not used to being their own advocate? I know a lot of times kids with whatever the disability may be, can be hesitant and not necessarily want to draw a lot of attention to themselves. So, what are some ways that parents can really help to foster a stronger advocating voice in their child?
Absolutely. So I think you can start right now. You can start in their transition IEP meetings, right? I know they have to work with their transition, either teacher or coach or their ESC teacher on developing that transition plan, and go through that with them. Talk to them about what do you want to do? What areas are you interested in? It's okay if they don't know exactly, and it's okay if they tell you 5 different things that they want to learn about. That's fine. Um, and then even in there, it asks them, what do I need, being the student, what do I need to help me? What has worked for me? And so they need to be able to answer those questions. So if you can start working with them through that process, and if you are doing anything that you see could be presumed as an accommodation or could be presumed as a benefit or a strategy for your child that's happening in your life, let them know that, right? So we have a calendar on the fridge. That's so I can help, as a mom, let's say, that's so I can help plan all of our schedules. Do you know how I use this calendar? Why is this calendar helpful to us? Right? Oh, because I know that I've got to go take Susie to dance class on Thursday, and I've got to take you to the football game on Friday night, and I've got to pick up dad from the airport on Tuesday, And yes, those are life things, those aren't academic things, but you're creating a rapport and a discussion of why do you even do those things. I don't think sometimes we talk to our students enough when they're in that kind of this transition. We call it adulting.
Yes.
That's the new buzzword that they will know too. We say hashtag not adulting today. That's what we like to say. And that's usually when you do nothing, right? Because we know as adults that never happens. And so just really working with them and showing them even what you do. How do you navigate different areas of life. How do you know when the bills are due? You
Right.
know, when do you sit down and have a time in your day to make sure you're meeting X, Y, and Z? And these things can happen. You have to think back, like I always tell people, because I really come from mostly elementary background, but I was always like, do math problems in the car on the way to school, right? When you're at the grocery store, make them count change, make them find this and that on the can of cereal, right? So you're doing those things. It doesn't necessarily go away as they get older. We just kind of shift what we're talking about, and really making a transition of responsibility. So, yes, it was a different time and place, but at 16 or 17, really, when I started driving, um, I got the debit card and the grocery list. And my mom hated grocery shopping. She still does to this day. So, and I loved it because I got to get out of the house, I got to drive, and I got to go to the grocery store. I would do anything. I didn't care, right? But that became my responsibility, and I had to learn how to interact with the cashier. I had to make sure I had everything correct in my bags. I had to exchange money or cards or whatever we were using. Um, and so it's starting to kind of build those pieces in, so students know how that life skills is absolutely going to relate to their academic skills. There is a connection. And we were just talking about this. A lot of our students now are really struggling with that resiliency, that determination, those kind of factors. They're wanting to give up when things get more challenging, when they hit roadblocks or barriers. And so we, as the adults, need to continue to promote strategies of how to navigate those things. We all run into challenges, to barriers, to unexpected outcomes and things like that. And talk to your child about how you navigate that, right? And how do
Right.
you manage those types of things? Um, and they have to start to learn what they need. And so just ask that question. What are you doing right now? And do you need help? What help do you need? You know, and
Right,
talk about how
becoming
you learn.
aware of what works. I
Yeah,
think a lot of times when the onus is on someone else to tell you, you need to ask for this, you need this, it takes away the empowerment for our young people to be able to say, wait a minute. I mean, I've recognized I also have a very strong elementary background, and I'll notice that on a lot of the IEPs, it's just everything is listed. And if you really watch how a student is learning, a lot of times they don't need everything. There are key things that really make a difference. Helping our children and our students recognize, wait a minute, I don't really need that, but I do really need the note taker. I may not need preferential seating, but boy, do I need some additional time. And if I was looking on the website. So if you have young people who are going to be transitioning from the IEP that's been protecting them in high school and they're going to go on to post-secondary, I'm going to drop the link again. I'm doing it right now into the chat box because there is an actual page on the Office for Students with Disabilities website that will give an explanation of accommodations. And it will literally not give you just a bulleted list, but really kind of explain what those accommodations are going to look like in a post-secondary setting. So I think that's also really helpful for parents and for our students to sit down and look through this and say, wait a minute, is this something? Let's read this. Is this something you are using right now? Is this something you think you're going to need? And to recognize too that it can change, that
absolutely.
yes, you can adjust. You go into a course, you didn't think you would need a certain accommodation, but you're finding, wait a minute, in order to keep up and in order to be able to be successful, I am going to have to talk to the teacher about making some tweaks and adjustments here. That's okay. That's important to be able to advocate. for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Faculty love when you come and talk to them. There's a lot of anonymity in college. There's less at a smaller institution like Valencia, and I mean smaller as in state college, and we have smaller classes. We are about 60,000 students wide, so we are not small in our numbers, but our classes are usually capped at 30. Some have a little bit more just depending on the type of course they are, and some have a lot less. And so we faculty love to engage with their students and learn about their students, learn how their students want to learn, what works best for them. And so they're happy to have those conversations when the student takes the time to engage in that relationship and that rapport.
I
One thing
like
I
that
want to
you
talk
talk
about,
oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, that's very popular right now, that is a big transition, is and kind of falls into that organizational and time management skills. We very rarely offer any type of assignment extensions or deadline extensions. I know I've seen on a lot of IEPs, it's like student has an additional day to turn in the work, or student can turn in the work by the end of the week that it's due, except just various, whatever. At the college level, the students are provided a syllabus at the beginning of the semester. And that syllabus has a detailed schedule inside of it. The expectation is that the students are aware of that schedule, aware of those due dates and deadlines, and that they plan accordingly to meet them. That's a big transition.
Yeah.
Because our teachers are saying, don't forget you have a test on Friday. Don't forget you need to do page 6 in your math workbook tonight. And they come in the next morning and they're like, did you do page 6 of your math workbook? If not, do it right now. Or, there's all kinds of things that can happen. That is not going to be the case. There's a lot of planning and organization that has to happen on the part of the student. And that tends to be one of the big challenges that we see, is we typically only provide those deadline extensions for students with medical diagnoses that could render them incapacitated for a part of their time, their attendance. If students have ADHD or autism or things like that, and they just struggle with those skills, that is not an accommodation, right? You need to learn those executive functioning skills outside of the classroom. We are not going to teach those skills at the college level.
So really, if that's not going to be taught at the college level, and you have a student that right now is working with under the protection of an IEP, and they're going to be transitioning to a post-secondary environment, this is really the time to start working with them and their current teachers on those executive functioning skills. And for parents, when we say executive functioning skills, those are the kind of skills like being able to plan, being able to organize information. Do you have some ideas of things that the students could be doing now, since that isn't taught when they actually get to their post-secondary destination?
Sure. So like I kind of mentioned in the presentation, our students are going towards electronic means of assistance. And so even for us as adults and parents, and that might be a little uncomfortable. I know I still love a good old-fashioned planner. And I like to write down my notes, and I have sticky notes. But that's not necessarily what works for kids these days. So even on their phones, there's different types of planner apps apps. There's different types of things they can do to set themselves reminders. If I know that pretty much everyone is using Canvas at the high school level in some way, shape, or form, Canvas has a calendar built into it that the students can use. And so if they're in a course that uses Canvas, they can look at that and plan their dates and deadlines. And they need to be referring to that all the time.
We also had someone, it's just MS, to chimed in and put in the, I want to copy this because it's really great information into the chat. We'll make sure we can share it with everyone else. But it actually addresses, it takes you to a website where it basically describes what executive function is, and then it has a video replay and podcast of ways in which you can teach these skills through an academic lens. So I think sometimes, parents aren't the educators don't have to be the keepers of all the knowledge. So this is an opportunity. If you know that your child struggles, I know we raised 4 boys. They're grown now, but our third oldest son, I didn't realize until he was in high school that he did have some learning challenges. I thought he was just stubborn. Like I thought he's my most strong-willed child. Well, it turns out that there were certain challenges, and his way of coping with a lot of those I perceived as being stubborn or being strong-willed. And so we had to come up with ways in which he could be organized. How would he be able to remember assignments? How could he plan? Like planning backwards. In his mind, everything took 15 minutes. Whether you were changing the oil in the car or making the bed, it was 15 minutes. So we really had to help him get a better sense of how long will this task actually take. And if you're saying it's going to take 30 minutes, then how do you plan to fit that in your day? Where are you going to put that to make sure that you can meet these deadlines?
Absolutely. And if you can work with them, if they tell you, oh, I can do this assignment in 15 minutes, put the timer on 15 minutes. And once they get to working, you'll be like, are you done?
Yeah.
Oh no, this is going to take me longer than 15 minutes. Okay, so next time when you have something you're working on, you need to plan a little bit more time. And it just can be a really big challenge because you're fighting a lot of responsibilities and priorities when you become an adult and when you attend college. So if students have a part-time job, if they have responsibilities in the family, taking care of younger siblings, taking care of older parents or grandparents, they still want to have fun with their friends and have time to hang out and do those kind of things. And then they have to have time to study, plan to study. And so kind of helping them with the organizational of even their time.
Right.
When we have students that do go on academic suspension, which can happen, we don't want it to happen, but that just means they've had too many unsuccessful academic semesters. Not to be confused with behavioral suspension, like in the at all. So
Right.
this is academic. Part of their readmission process is literally timing their entire week. They have to go through and create a calendar of their all hours that they're awake or asleep and what they're doing during that time. And as part of their learning and readmission process. And so in order to avoid getting to that point, you can absolutely be proactive and start that now. Have your student have a schedule of, how am I going to get this all done in this amount of time?
Well, Rachel, I so appreciate your time. I appreciate that you were able to join us. And I want to especially thank all of the families that joined us. It is important for us to be able to not only get the information we need to help our kids, but also to model for our children. This is what you do if you know going into a situation that you need to have certain information. You need to be knowledgeable so that you can advocate for yourself. I did drop in the chat it's a link to a brief survey. If our participants would take a minute to please go ahead and fill that out and complete that. We do use your feedback to improve what we offer and how we can meet your needs as parents and students in OCPS. I also, oh, Emma said thank you. No, thank you. That was a great
Yes.
resource. I really want to say thank you. I did go to the site and it's fabulous. I also want to go ahead and shamelessly plug the fact that we have one last in-person Parent Academy for parent and family engagement, April 27th. It's a Saturday, April 27th at Edgewater High School. I'm very excited to say that Rachel will have 2 team members who will come out and present this information again for parents, because the focus of the April Parent Academy is literally transitions from preschool to elementary, elementary to middle, middle to high, and high school to adulting. We take a look at all of those very pivotal and important integral transitions that our students face. Again, I want to say thank you so much to Ms. Liesel Hernandez, who always supports us from our multilingual department. She has been definitely supporting us in the chat. Rachel, I cannot thank you enough. This was great information. I know that it meant a lot to our parents. As always, anytime that you would like to join us, we welcome you to come back.
Oh, thank you. I'm always happy to be here and help guide the future students and parents and families making that transition, that ever important transition. And post-secondary is an option for a lot of students. And so I always encourage you, even if you are not totally sure your child's ready for college, don't ever hesitate to come and talk to us and see what options we have available. Valencia offers a lot of different pathways. And so we are always happy to talk about different options for everyone.
And we do want to let our families know that this this has been recorded. This session has been recorded, and it will be available next week on our YouTube Families channel, so that if you missed anything or you just wanted the opportunity to be able to listen to it again, we definitely want to make sure that you are able to do that, and it will be posted, like I said, by next week. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to the YouTube Families channel in the chat so that you have it if you should need it. Once again, OCPS families, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful Thursday night, and we look forward to when we can meet with you again. Take care, everyone.
Bye.